Bleeding the disc brakes on your road bike isn't as hard as some people make out. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it on this bike. It's a myth that disc brake maintenance should only be done by experts with walls of fancy tools. It's just not true. With some basic know-how and the right tools, you can easily do this job yourself at home and restore your brakes back to factory fresh. However, there is a caveat there. If you're a bit rubbish at this sort of thing, maybe you shouldn't do it, and maybe you should take it to a bike shop. After all, it is your disc brakes and we don't want you riding into a wall. So the bike we're going to be working on today is this one, and it is running Shimano 105 7000 disc, group set of the people. Now this particular bike, the brake fluid in this one has done 7,500 miles, so this one is well and truly overdue a service. As you can see, the lever on this is pulling right in. It's actually hitting the bar, so this is borderline dangerous. Now because the fluid in this one is so old, there is a chance that we are going to find it's contaminated, so we'll see how it goes, but we might end up finding a load of really bad fluid in this one. Could end up having to do it twice, but as I say, we'll see how we go. Now, to keep the video simple and a little bit shorter, I'm only going to do the front, but the front and the back is exactly the same process. The only real difference there is when you're trying to get the air out of the system, when you're trying to burp the system, you may have to tilt the frame up a bit to try and get the air out, because obviously the rear caliper, the hose goes under the bottom bracket, so that's the lowest point, so you're going to have to wiggle its stuff around a bit. But other than that, the process front to back is exactly the same. Right, so let's crack on and have a look at this. Okay, so first thing, let's have a look at the tools we're going to use to do this job. First off, as you can see, I've now got the bike up on the maintenance stand. If you haven't got yourself one of these, it's a must-have tool. If you're doing bike maintenance yourself, you need to get a maintenance stand. They're really, really cheap. You can pick these up for about £25–30. I'll put a link in the description below where you can pick up stuff like this. And try and get yourself one with all the quick release and the little bar that holds the handlebars for you. Just makes everything a little bit easier. Right, other than that, we are going to use a basic bleed kit. This is a standard bleed kit that you can get from any of your major. You can get these on Amazon, you can get them on Wiggle, you can get them on Sigma. And these basic kit, about £15 for one of these, but most important thing is get the Shimano one that's got the mineral type fluid, okay, not the dot type fluid. On Shimano you use mineral fluid. Don't use the wrong one, you'll damage your brakes. Now a lot of those kits, they claim they give you everything you need, but from my personal opinion, you are better off also getting yourself the special Shimano funnel that sits on top of the lever. I would strongly recommend you get one of those. Now when you buy this funnel, it comes just as the funnel like that, okay, and it comes with the smaller connector on the bottom. You see that? Okay, so that's the standard funnel. Now to fit on most modern Shimano road group sets, you also need one of these little adapters, okay? So that funnel with the little adapter costs roughly £15. If you buy the funnel, that adapter won't come with it, and you won't be able to do the job, so you need one of those. Right, okay. So those are the specialist tools that you're going to need. Other than that, the tools are pretty basic stuff. We're going to be using a normal flathead screwdriver, pair of long nose pliers, a 7mm spanner, and a couple of Allen keys, a 2.5 and a 4. Right, so let's crack on. Now on my brake bleed, what I'm also going to be doing, because this is so overdue, I'm also going to be giving the brake caliper a thorough cleaning using some brake cleaner, and I'm also going to be putting a fresh set of pads on it. Now depending on what the condition is of your calipers and your pads, you may or may not want to watch that bit. The video's got chapters on it and using your slide bar down the bottom. When we get to this bit, you can just skip this bit if you are confident that your pads and calipers are clean. However, if you've not got much experience in that area, it's well worth watching that little bit, because I'll give you a few hints and tips on how to do that. Right, okay. So to help you understand what we're going to do, it's a good idea to give you a basic understanding of what the process is here. So what we're going to do is we're basically going to get a syringe, fill it with brake fluid, attach it to the caliper on the bottom. Then what we're going to do, we're going to put a funnel on the top, empty, and we're going to get that brake fluid and push it, and it's going to come up the system, and the old fluid is going to end up in the funnel on the top and the new fluid in the system, and then we'll close it off. However, there's a bit more to it than that, but that just gives you a basic understanding of what we're going to do, and it helps you follow it as we go along. Right, next step. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the front wheel, and we're going to take out the brake pads. The reason we're going to remove the wheel and take the brake pads out, two reasons. One, it makes everything a lot easier to get to, but two, and more importantly, what you need to worry about here is contamination. If you get any of that hydraulic fluid on either the pads or the disc, game over. They're going to squeal and they're going to perform really, really badly. So the best thing to do, protect everything, just take them out of the way. Right, so let's get the wheel, that's the wheel off. Let's get the pads off. I'll show you how to do that now. Taking the pads off, super easy. You're using your long nose pliers and your flathead screwdriver. Back of the caliper, remove the little clip. Get yourself one of these magnetic tray, really handy. Pop bits in it, you won't lose them. So take your pin off the back, get your flathead screwdriver, unscrew the pin, and pull the pads out. Simple as that. Pop them on your magnetic tray. You won't lose them. Okay, so that's the wheel off and the pads out. So the next step, good practice, is to give the caliper a once over clean. Now, if you're confident that yours are clean and tidy, then using the chapters and the slide bar at the bottom, you can skip this bit and move on to the next step, which is the bleeding. But if you want to know a bit more about how to deal with the cleaning of them, hang about. Now, when you're out and about on the road, you've got grit, dirt, dust, brake dust, everything coming up, and it's all going to get built up inside that caliper. Now, it's really, really important. I can't stress this enough, how important it is every now and again to clean that out, because the pistons are held in place with delicate rubber O-rings, and what will happen over time, if you don't clean in there, what happens is those delicate O-rings get damaged by all the grit and the dirt and the dust, and what will happen is that grit, dirt and dust and road debris will not only get in and contaminate the brake fluid, but also it will damage that seal so badly that the brake fluid then starts to leak out. And once the brake fluid starts to leak out, it will leak out on the pads and wreck the pads, and it will leak out onto the disc and wreck the disc. And once that happens, you're basically replacing them all, and it's very expensive. Good practice is to just periodically get in there, give it a clean to clear all that dust and debris out and stop any damage further down the line. Okay, so cleaning the calipers is really, really simple. First of all, don't do this on your mum's dining room table. You'll find yourself in trouble. Put yourself a rag on the floor because it's going to get a little bit messy. As far as brushes is concerned, yeah, you can get fancy brushes that do this. For me personally, how I do it is, first of all, you want a bristly kind of brush. So I've got an old paintbrush that I've purposely cut short because it makes it quite hard and it's great for cleaning here. And also, a little twisted brush like that, absolutely fantastic for getting in there and getting all the dirt out. And as far as product is concerned, one of the popular ones that people use is the muck off cleaner. Perfectly good product. I use it myself. What I'm trying out at the moment is this one from a company called Crankalicious. Trying to give a bit to the small guy. You get a little bit more in the bottle, and it's easier to control than an aerosol. And it comes in a little bit cheaper, and in my opinion, it does the job just as well. I'm not saying it does it better, I'm saying it does it just as well. Right, let's crack on and give it a quick clean. So, protect the workspace, put your hand around it, just give it a squirt. Squirt your brush as well, and get your brush in there, and give it a good going over, all the way round. Squirt your brush, all on the outside, get all the surface road dust off the outside. And after you've given it a clean, grab a bit of kitchen towel or a clean cloth, Give it a wipe over and give it a wipe inside as well. And that cleans it all inside and protects those delicate O-rings. Simple as that. So once you've cleaned your caliper, the next job is to push the pistons back within the caliper. What you'll find is as your brake pads wear down, the pistons will have to move in further and further and further to accommodate for the gap that's created by the wear. So the next job is to get those pistons and push them back out as far as they will go. Now, you can get tools specifically for this, and somewhere I've got one, but to be totally honest with you, I find, for me personally, I find the best tool to use is either a small spanner, or my choice is actually my long nose pliers, because they're nice, they're hard, but they're nice and rubbery, and they've got a nice hook on it. And for me, actually, that's the best tool for the job. What you don't do, and I've heard even the big boys say it, is use a screwdriver. Those pistons are plastic and they're fragile. The last thing you want to be doing is putting a screwdriver in there and pushing against them. You will damage them, you could potentially even crack them. So don't use a screwdriver for this job. Find something that's either nice and rounded on the end, like a ring spanner, or as I use, a hook pair of pliers, long nose pliers, or you can buy yourself the correct tool. And if I could find it, I'll show you it. I spent half an hour looking for it, I can't find it. Because I don't bother using it anymore, because as I say, I use my long nose pliers. Just get those in there, hook them in there, and push the piston as far back as it will go. As simple as that. And once you've pushed it back, what you then do, to keep it pushed back, you put something in called a bleed block. And that is the official Shimano bleed block. But what you'll find, if you've got a good kit, they also come with a bleed block as well, okay? But we'll leave that one in the packet and we'll use the old Shimano one that we've used loads of times. So that basically, you slot that block in place of your brake pads, and you use the pin. So get the block, slot it in place, and put the pin through to hold it in place. You don't need to do the bolt back up, just slot it in to hold it in place. Right, let's have a look up the top. Oh, one last thing down the bottom. Don't forget to remove the little bleed nipple cover. Completely remove that. Take it off entirely. Don't just pop it off because it will get in the way. Pop that over there in your little tray with your other bits and bobs. Right, now let's go to the top. Right, so now we're on the top. Now this is 105. So with 105, we are peeling from the front. But depending on what group set you've got, you may find you've got to peel from the back. But in this case, we are peeling from the front, and we are going to be using our nozzle, our funnel. Now the little adapter, it's worth noting that this comes with the levers, and if your retailer's on it, they would have given you a bag with a few bits and bobs in it. Check that bag. That little funnel, that little adapter for the funnel may be in there. But what we do, attach the adapter to the bottom of the funnel. Okay, let's just pop that to one side. And then you get your 2.5mm Allen key. Now once again, don't take that as gospel. Depending on your group set, that might be a 2mm. And what you're looking at is this bleed port here. Using your Allen key, make sure, do not round this off, make sure it's in there. If there's any dirt in there, dig it out. Make sure it's in nice and secure, and crack it open. It's normal for it to pop like that. Okay, now you can use this end. Careful when you take this off. Look, there is also a little rubber washer that seals this. Make sure you don't lose that. If you've got the handy magnetic tray, pop it on there. And now, your funnel with the bung still in, And let's carefully screw that in place. It's not over tighten it, just enough so it pinches up. Now, good practice at this point will be to get yourself a rag and just put a rag around here, because you don't want any of the fluid getting anywhere you don't want it to and giving you any problems further down the line. So there you go. So we've now got the block on the bottom and the funnel on the top. We're almost ready to start that bleed. Right, getting closer to doing the bleed. Right, the next step is to get your brake fluid into your syringe. Now most kits come with a syringe around about that size. You want to fill it up around about 3/4 of the way, which is roughly about 20-25 mil. But what's really important is to get the air out. So as you can see, we have now got a lovely air bubble in there. So we need to get that out. What we do, turn it that way up, draw it back on yourself first to get the fluid out of the pipe, and then slowly push up to get the air out. And you want your fluid, right, too far, right to the very top. And if you can't get the air out, where the air's still in there, just draw it back and push it forward. Again, I've got a bit of a sticky syringe, so it's shooting up. But you get the general idea. Don't offer it onto the bike until you've got the air out. Okay, so once our syringe is full and we have got all of the air out of it, sometimes leave it standing around for 10 minutes upright like that, and you'll find all the air will come out of it. We need to now put it on the bike. Little top tip for you: if you're using a ring spanner like this one, pop it over the pipe first. You'll work out why when we get down there. And a lot of these kits, they also come with a strap like this, and I'll show you what we do with that. So the whole trick with bleeding the brakes, your number one enemy is air. We don't want any air in the system. So what we do, we attach the pipe to the bleed nipple, make sure it's on all the way, offer our spanner on, so now our spanner now fits down there. And then what we do, using this strap, we then strap the syringe to the fork. And the reason we're doing that is because that then gets any air out of the system. If you see any air in the pipe, you can just draw it back up and suck the air out, and you'll find it'll all rise to the top. Right, now for the satisfying bit. We're starting to get somewhere. So we have got the funnel on the top, all attached. We have got the syringe attached, spanner attached, bleed block in. Everything is now ready to go. So what we now need to do is we need to open the system up and push the fluid from the bottom up to the top, and let's see what we get. So the first thing to do is this funnel has got a little bung in it. Wiggle it like that, out it comes. Pop it somewhere safe. So that's the top now open. And what we then do, spanner at the bottom, only half a turn, and undo it. You might find it kinks the pipe a bit. Just twist the kink out. And now what we do is we push the plunger down and force the new brake fluid up and force the old brake fluid into the funnel. Golden rule here, don't push too hard, because you may end up pushing the pipe off of the bottom. Hold the pipe in place and slowly push the plunger down. And as we can see, we have got pretty unpleasant, almost black fluid. And I can just see the pink coming up. So what I'm now going to do, I'm going to close that off. I'm not going to remove the syringe, but I'm just going to close that off. I'm now going to get my bung, put my bung back in, check it to make sure it's secure, and I'm going to unwind. Good practice. Have a bit of kitchen towel ready, unwind it. There we go. And as you can see, that's what it should look like. And that's what it does look like. So there you go. So now we dispose of that correctly, and then I'm going to put a little bit more fluid in there, and then we'll reattach it, and then just try and get the air out of the system. Okay, so that's the funnel now emptied, and we've now got a clean funnel back on the top of the hood, bung still back in there. I've given it a wipe out, and now what we're going to do is we're just going to put a little bit more fluid in, not a lot, just 1/5. And by removing the old dirty fluid and then reattaching the funnel with some fresh fluid, we've now got the option to be able to draw back if we need to. I'm not necessarily saying we have to, but we've now got that option. If you've got dirty, contaminated fluid up here, you can't draw back because you'll be pulling that dirty fluid in. That's why personally, in my opinion, you're better off taking it away, getting rid of it and putting some fresh fluid in. So now you can go forward and backwards whilst trying to get your air bubbles out. So with our fresh fluid in the funnel, what we'll now do is we can now confidently take the bung out and not have to worry about any contaminated fluid going back into our nice fresh fluid. And what we now do is we'll get the levers and pump the lever and watch those last little bits of air come up. And what will happen is the bits of air, as they come in, they get replaced by the fluid that's in the funnel. And that is why we've emptied the fluid out of the funnel. But what we will also do is we will relax the stand and we will push the bike right down, because there's pipework inside the funnel and the air can get trapped in that pipework. So what we'll do is we'll lean it right down, watching the funnel, make sure we don't tip it so far that it pours on the floor, and then pull the lever again and watch more air bubbles come out. And then what we'll do is we'll do the same procedure again, but we'll tip it up. Now, one of the ways you can do this is you could just loosen the handlebars and tilt the handlebars, but I don't like to do that because you can guarantee you'll never get them back where they were. You could put some insulating tape along the front and mark it with a pen or something, but I just find it's easier to do it this way. Tilt it, don't go too far, pump the lever, let the air come out. Another good idea is to get your screwdriver, tap the lever, work the air out, and tap the hoses. Give the caliper a tap, give the hose a tap to encourage that air to work its way out of the system, and keep pumping that lever. And once you don't see any more air come out, like I'm seeing now, what we then do, put the bung back in, and remove our funnel, and that last bit of clean, fresh fluid we can put back in the bottle. Right, let's start cleaning up. Okay, so first stage of finishing off, let's close up the top. So, our 2.5mm Allen key, With our bleed port, don't forget that O-ring, make sure that O-ring's still on there. Carefully offer this on. Now it's good practice to have a bit of kitchen towel to hand, because as this bolt goes in, it's going to push out some of the brake fluid and it's going to run down the side of the lever. Pop it on, as expected, it's running down. Careful not to cross thread. Careful not to screw the kitchen towel in as well. Wipe away any excess. And now use your short end. Make sure it's in properly. And pinch it up. Don't over tighten. Let the O-ring do its job. Wipe away any overspill. Right, let's go and finish off down the bottom. Your spanner. Just make sure the bleed nipple's done up. It's a good idea to get your syringe and draw it back as you pull the pipe off. That way you don't get squirted with a load of fluid. And it draws it back into the syringe. Take the bleed block out. And the last step, down here, good practice. Let's borrow that cloth. And just give this area one more quick wipe over, just in case any brake fluid had got spilled, because we don't want it on the brake pads, because that will cause nothing but problems. Don't forget, return the little cover, pop that back on. Now let's go to the top, because we've got a bit of overspill here. Perfectly good to use a brake cleaner to clean up here as well. Give everything a wipe up here. And roll the hood top back. Don't be surprised if it can be a bit saggy on the top, for want of a better phrase. You tend to find it sort of shrinks back over time. So there you go. Now all we need to do is put the brake pads back in and put the wheel back on. Right, one of the final stages, let's get the brakes back in. Now here's a top tip for you. This bolt, official name the brake pad axle, is made of steel and the calipers are made of aluminium. Any bike mechanic will tell you horror stories of this bolt seizing into that caliper due to something called galvanic corrosion. The two get wet and they seize together. Top tip for you, get the tiniest bit of grease from a grease gun, just the tiniest little bit. I'll do a close-up for you. Park Tool grease gun, $13.99, brilliant bit of kit. Just get a tiny little bit of grease. You only need a tiny little bit. Don't put too much on, because it could end up on your brake pads and then you've got an whole new problem. Just the tiniest little bit. Wipe the rest away. All it needs is a tiny bit. That tiny little bit of grease will make all the difference. And it will stop that bolt and that brake caliper seizing together. Right, now what I always do at this point, gloves off, because they could be greasy. Clean hands, fresh pair of pads. Another tip for you, put the bolt through first, so that when you offer them on, they don't fall out of line. Keep the bolt in. Drop the pads in. Then slide the bolt out, offer them down, and then you'll find the bolt will go straight through every time. Just pinch tight, don't over tighten it. Long nose pliers. And your pin, put your pin on the end. Grab your wheel, which needs pumping up. Pop it on. And what you're going to find is when you first pull the brake, it's going to sink right in because the pads need to come back out. So if you watch, it will go in, but then it'll harden up. See? And now it's hardened up. If you find it doesn't harden up, lift the hood back, put your funnel on, drop a bit more fluid in there. Do your wheel up, give it a spin. Now in this case, there is a very, very slight rub. And that is why I mentioned we need a 4mm Allen key. What we will do, get the caliper, get the caliper bolts that go into the fork, loosen them off, loosen them off just enough so the caliper freely wobbles. Pinch the brake, hold the brake while the brake's on, keeping the brake held on, do the caliper back up. And then what you'll find is theoretically there we go. Sometimes it takes more than one go. And that is how you bleed the brakes. Now all you need to do now is do the same with the back. And as I was saying, use the tilt method to get the air out. Now, if bike maintenance is your thing, check out that video up there. My top 10 bike maintenance tools. And if you're in the process of giving your bike a spring clean, why not check that video down there? That's my latest video on how quick and easy it is to replace the bar tape. If you found this video useful, do me a huge favour, hit that like button. And for more content like this, make sure you hit the subscribe and the bell icon to get notifications every time I post a video. Thanks for watching.